Subscribe Tag TV YouTube channel and press the notification button.
People have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.
Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a program that talks about breeding of terrorism and its impact on South Asian nations. Let's begin with the headlines first. India remembers horrific Mumbai attack, Pakistani perpetrators still at large. Jaish terrorists infiltrating into India through tunnels constructed by Pakistani rangers. And Bangladeshi youth arrested in Singapore on charges of terrorism. It's been 12 years since the horrendous terror attacks on Mumbai were carried out. On 26 November 2008, 10 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists sneaked into Mumbai from Pakistan and went on the rampage, carrying out coordinated attacks at different locations in India's financial capital, which claimed the lives of 166 people. As India marks the 12th anniversary of this heinous attack, the real perpetrators and masterminds of the attacks are still roaming free in Pakistan. A report.
November 2008. India was caught unawares when 10 heavily armed Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists sprayed bullets, making Mumbai bleed. The bloodshed continued for 3 days, leaving 166 people dead and hundreds of others injured. The scars of the ghastly Mumbai terror attacks are still indelible. To mark the 12th anniversary of this barbaric attack, India paid tributes to those who laid down their lives while fighting terrorists. Victims and survivors remembered those brave hearts who firmly stood against the perpetrators and fought with valor in a bid to save the lives of scores of people.
सबने जो बलिदान दिए है वो व्यर्थ नहीं गया. उनको तो ये लग रहा है 12 साल हुए, 12 नहीं अभी 120 साल हुए, तभी भी कोई मतलब देश भूल नहीं सकता.
Every year, people from around the world come together in solidarity with India to demand justice against the deadly attacks in Mumbai. This year too, Indian diaspora across America organized a march in the memory of 26/11 attacks. People from varying religious groups attended the solidarity event to express their anger against the terrorist-sponsoring nation, Pakistan. Indians living in Canada also organized an LED truck advertisement campaign across many cities of Greater Toronto areas against Pakistan's terrorist attack and demanded Canada's Legislative Assembly to press Pakistan for justice with all victims. Last year too, Indians in London came down heavily on Pakistan for training terrorists in its territory.
Pakistan-trained terrorists entered India and killed 246 people. Innocent lives were lost. I think we need to get a message across to Pakistan. We don't need this. There are better things you can do with what you have. Please spread love and not hatred. We don't need this. Pakistan is the biggest terrorist training center in the world.
For years, India has been demanding Pakistan to bring the real perpetrators of Mumbai terror attacks to justice and hand over Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of these attacks, to New Delhi. However, in order to keep him safe in the country, Pakistan keeps taking pseudo-actions against Saeed and has sentenced him several times in terror financing cases by its so-called anti-terrorism court. Going on the same routes, Hafiz Saeed was once again awarded a 10-year jail term in 2 terror financing cases last week. However, The step is evidently yet another absurd exercise conducted by Pakistan to fool the FATF, which has retained the deep state on its grey list since 2018. As expected, despite being sentenced to 10 years jail in terror financing cases, Pakistan has quietly shifted Hafiz to his house in Lahore from Kot Lakhpat jail, where he continues to run Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Hafiz Saeed is the strategic asset of Pakistan's ISI. And since ISI rules the roost in Pakistan, it is quite possible that nothing can happen to Hafiz Saeed. Hafiz Saeed earlier also has been in the jail, but he always enjoyed 5-star facilities. Even he conducted election campaign while being under house arrest in the last National Assembly election in Pakistan. One can understand the importance Hafiz Saeed has for the ISI.
These investigations are merely an eyewash since no significant terror leaders have received any punishment for their heinous deeds. Like Saeed, a senior leader of Lashkar-e-Taiba and the foremost ringleader of the attack, Zakir Rahman Lakhvi, was arrested in 2008 but released on bail by Pakistan court, citing lack of evidence, and since then he has been underground. Such cosmetic efforts are also a big reason why Pakistan, a home to the largest number of listed terrorists internationally, is still failing terribly to convince the world about its seriousness to stop its land being used as a launch pad for global terror attacks.
Pakistan's consistent efforts to unleash violence and chaos in India was foiled yet again last week when the Indian security forces eliminated 4 heavily armed terrorists in Jammu's Nagrota region. Latest investigative reports reveal the terrorists who belonged to Jaish-e-Mohammed had infiltrated into India by tunnels along the Samba sector of LOC. In view of this major anti-India conspiracy that got exposed in Nagrota, New Delhi firmly expressed its resentment with Pakistan against the consistent cross-border terrorism carried out by the terrorists from its territory. A report.
This tunnel detected in Jammu's Samba district traces its way back to Pakistan, a country whose single-point agenda is to disrupt peace and accord in India. For this, it has been sending terrorists from across the border through different means. The jihadis killed by police and security forces at Bantol Plaza near Nagrota along the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway had infiltrated into India through the 180 to 200 meter long and 8 feet deep tunnel near the international border in the Samba sector. Investigations into the Nagrota anti-terror operation reveal that Jaish-e-Mohammed was planning to carry out a Pulwama-scale terror strike under the orders of Maulana Masood Azhar's brother Abdul Rauf Asghar and commissioned by Pakistani spy agency Inter-Services Intelligence.
It has emerged that these Pakistani terrorists came through a tunnel dug underground the border fence. It is absolutely clear, and now it is confirmed, affirmative, that it was Pakistani army and the ISI that had trained these Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists for good about 6 months before sending them into India, and they were Fidain terrorists, and their targets were definitely some very high value targets, and it could have been a repeat of Pulwama or anything like 26/11. So it was a very big sinister plot by the enemy that was unearthed, and these guys were encountered at Bantol and they were eliminated in a very precise and a very fantastic intelligence-based operation.
Pakistan continues to use its proxies to harm the flourishing grassroots democracy and development in Jammu and Kashmir. Its latest target was the District Development Council election in the region, for which the Jaish terrorists had infiltrated through tunnels but eventually got killed by the Indian security forces in Nagrota. Desperate calls made by the terrorists in Kashmir to their handlers in Pakistan were trapped by the security agencies. This led to the biggest arms haul recovery this year so far from the four-slain Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists in the Nagrota encounter. Pakistani deep state uses Jaish to infiltrate into India from terror camps at Shakargarh across the Samba border. The tunnels constructed with the help of Pakistani rangers are usually 200 meters long with enough space for terrorists to walk upright and cross the border. The length goes on to 40 meters long on the Pakistani side.
Since the time India has abrogated Article 370, the grip of Indian administration over the politics and the dynamics of Jammu and Kashmir have grown stronger. And this is what is creating a great nervousness into the enemy's camp. They always wanted to keep control over the reins that dictate the environment in the valley in their favor. But now the things are changing. The environment is slowly and steadily getting towards the democratic side of the mainstream India, and this is the reason why these terrorists were getting into the Indian territory to create a mayhem in the local body elections of DDC, which Pakistan sees as a great challenge to whatever they have achieved so far in this proxy war of more than 30 years.
The Indian Ministry of External Affairs summoned an official of the Pakistan in Delhi over the deep-rooted Pakistan-supported anti-India conspiracy foiled in Nagrota. The ministry raised serious concerns over continued terror attacks against India by Jaish-e-Mohammed. The terror organization had carried out several deadly attacks in India, including the February 2019 Pulwama attacks. New Delhi also reiterated its long-standing demand that Pakistan should fulfill its international obligations and bilateral commitments to not allow any territory under its control to be used for terrorism against India in any manner.
This time India has been very, very proactive as far as conveying its displeasure is concerned. Otherwise, we have always shown a lot of tolerance towards Pakistani supported terrorism that comes into India. It has just been in over past 4 or 5 years that we have been talking in a different tone, and this time something very amazing has happened, and that amazing thing has come from the Prime Minister's side, wherein he has tweeted and he has said that India is absolutely prepared to give a befitting reply if Pakistan, without naming the country, that is, tries to create any problem in our country through terrorism.
Intelligence reports suggest that Pakistan-based terrorist groups have been preparing for a major drive in Jammu and Kashmir. While Hafiz Saeed-led Lashkar-e-Taiba is mobilizing cadre in Muzaffarabad to fresh locations in Neelam Valley across the line of control between India and Pakistan, the Hizbul Mujahideen is training nearly 400 cadre at a newly constructed facility in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to unleash mayhem in Jammu and Kashmir. The prevailing peace and development in Jammu and Kashmir has frustrated Pakistan, and now it is trying all possible means to unleash chaos and violence in the region.
Afghanistan is witnessing a constant surge in violence with no clear end in sight for a war that has turned into a stalemate. While the intra-Afghan talks are still underway in Doha and have so far failed to make any significant progress, large number of civilians and security forces are being killed on a daily basis in attacks across the country. Once again, twin explosions in the central Afghan province of Bamiyan killed several people, which was still now regarded as one of the safest destinations in Afghanistan.
Day-to-day life on the streets of Afghan cities looks like any other country, but it is not. A sudden explosion could happen at any moment. This week, at least 14 people were killed and 45 wounded when two blasts ripped through a crowded marketplace in the historic city of Bamia in central Afghanistan.
دست ما با کار بود که اینجا یک انفجاری رخ داد. همینجا خیلی ما جای خود بلند شدیم که اینجا یک تونست دیگه و پارچه شد. باز دیگه همین شیشه‌های نانوایی هم ریخت و فهمیدی دیگه کلا شیشه در روی زمین گدام و کلی چیز. باز پس آمدیم اینجا که یک انتحاری دیگه از بلند صدای شما نفهمیدم.
No group immediately claimed the responsibility for the attacks, though the Taliban clearly denied its involvement in the bombings. It may, however, be noted that the Islamic State in Afghanistan has declared war on the country's minority Shiite Muslims, and Bamia is a province with a Shiite Muslim majority population. Islamic State has also claimed the responsibility for the attacks last week, when a barrage of rockets struck densely populated areas in the heart of Afghan capital Kabul, killing at least 8 people and wounding several others.
وقتی که راکت آمد ما میچای اعلا کردیم دیگه اینجا یک موتر زدم موتر می چی را نان چیزا را کلچه و چیزا را میاره دیگه مو 3 نفر زخمی را بردن به طرف شفاخانه.
Violence and chaos has surged in Afghanistan in recent months as the inter-Afghan talks are still underway and have so far failed to make any significant progress. Recently, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo also met negotiators from the Afghan government and the Taliban in Doha, where he called for a significant reduction in violence and encouraged further discussions on a political roadmap and a permanent and comprehensive ceasefire. United States has announced the reduction of thousands of US military personnel from Afghanistan by mid-January, leaving just 2,500 troops in the country. There are apprehensions that the hasty troop withdrawal from Afghanistan could plunge the war-racked nation deeper into violence. However, the United States says that it will remain committed to its own enduring partnership with Afghanistan and will help the Afghan peace negotiations be successful.
President Trump's November 17 decision to draw down the number of troops does not signal a change in policy. America remains committed to its enduring partnership with a sovereign, unified, stable, and representative Afghanistan. We seek to preserve and build upon the considerable gains made over the past 19 years.
Dozens of nations recently pledged billions of dollars in aid for Afghanistan at the conference in Geneva, hoping that peace negotiations between the government and the Taliban will end nearly 2 decades of war. However, an increased level of violence in the country seems to depict a different reality in terms of progress.
The growing influence of the Islamic State among Bangladeshi youth is raising serious concerns over the country's peace and security. The growing traction of youth towards jihadi ideology under the influence of varied terror groups is not only posing threat to Bangladesh but also India, which consistently remains a victim of radical Islamic terrorism propagated by Pakistan and its notorious spy agency ISI. Recently, a Bangladeshi youth was nabbed by Singapore security agencies on the charges of terrorism. A report.
Since the year 2000, Bangladesh has experienced more than 100 incidents of Islamist terrorism. Of late, the country has become a recruitment hub for the Islamic State terror group. Gullible youths attracted by the Islamic State in Bangladesh either indulge in terror activities in South Asia or go off to developed countries to generate funds for the terror groups. Recently, a 26-year-old Bangladeshi youth Ahmed Faisal was arrested in Singapore under the Internal Security Act following investigations into terrorism-related activities. Faisal was working as a construction worker in Singapore since early 2017 and became radicalized in 2018 after imbibing online propaganda on Islamic State.
The arrest of a Bangladeshi in Singapore is manifestation of growing radicalism within Bangladesh. This is not the first time a Bangladeshi has been arrested in Singapore. In May 2016, some Bangladeshis were arrested. To be precise, 8 Bangladeshis. They were funding terror groups back in Bangladesh. Even this Bangladeshi was funding extremist groups in Bangladesh. He also had intention to go to Syria and fight for ISIS and other extremist groups. Subsequently, he realized that it was not easy for him to go to these countries. So he wanted to go back to Bangladesh and act against Hindus in his own country. He also had intention to go to Kashmir and fight there. So these expatriate Bangladeshis are a source of funding for extremist groups in Bangladesh, and some of them also act as recruits for extremist groups.
Curtailing funding and money laundering for Bangladeshi terrorist groups is a significant challenge for the authorities. There are a large number of external and internal sources of terror financing which are used for recruiting and training the cadres of extremist groups like NGOs, charities and donations, self-funding, criminal activities like robbery and legitimate businesses in several sectors such as banking, healthcare, education or real estate. Moreover, Pakistan's notorious inter-services intelligence is also providing monetary support to train terrorist groups in Bangladesh to carry out terror strikes in the region and other parts of South Asia. High-ranking senior diplomats of Pakistani diplomacy have often been held guilty for funneling fake currency to terror groups to carry out activities related to terrorism and hatred.
Pakistan is trying to brainwash young Bangladeshis against India in many ways. Especially its High Commission is a hotbed of extremist activity in Bangladesh. Their diplomats remain in touch with various radical groups in Bangladesh. Some of their diplomats have been arrested even in the past and deported from Bangladesh. These diplomats incite these recruits of these terror groups to act in India. They also fund them and perhaps also put them in touch with similar radical groups back in Pakistan.
Several evidences have time and again proved that Pakistan is providing protection, training, strategic planning, financial assistance and equipment to terrorist and insurgency groups operating in the region to destabilize neighboring Afghanistan and India. India has made efforts domestically and along with Bangladesh to counter the threat posed by the Pakistan-backed terror groups. However, with terrorists adapting to exploit new technologies and new tactics, the threat of terrorism will continue to pose a big challenge to Bangladesh's peace and security.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@nin.com. This is Shreya Savijay, signing off on the behalf of entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.
Subscribe Tag TV YouTube channel and press the notification button.